What's up everyone and welcome back to the channel. Let's dive into our first news. Robert Whittaker has made it clear that he wants Sean Strickland as his next opponent, and he wants that fight to happen in Sydney. Whittaker and Strickland have been circling each other at the top of the UFC middleweight division for years, both having experienced highs and lows, championship reigns, and moments of being just one step away from another title shot. Now Whittaker feels that the timing couldn't be better for the two to finally meet inside the octagon. Speaking on his MMA Arcade podcast, Whittaker explained why a matchup with Strickland makes perfect sense. He said his plan is to fight in Sydney next February, making it clear that the location is just as important to him as the opponent. Fighting at home in Australia is something he's always cherished, and the idea of bringing in a high-profile fight against Strickland only adds to the excitement. Whittaker described Strickland as the kind of fighter who always brings attention to a card. His style, his personality, and his ability to stir up hype make him a valuable name to have in a main event or co-main event. For Whittaker, Strickland is not only the right fight competitively, but also the right fight for the fans. He admitted that he's been wanting this matchup for a while, believing their styles would create a strong clash that fans would enjoy. There is, however, one complication. Whittaker pointed out that Strickland doesn't exactly have the best rapport with the Australian government, suggesting that there may be hurdles to bringing him over for a fight in Sydney. He mentioned that Strickland has had some issues with Australia in the past, which could make things difficult when it comes to travel or event planning. Still, Whittaker didn't shut the door on the idea. Instead, he left it open, saying he would love for it to happen, and that it's just a matter of seeing how things play out. For Whittaker, fighting in front of his home fans in Australia has always been special, and adding Strickland to that stage would make it even more meaningful. It's a fight between two former champions, both known for their toughness, experience, and ability to put on exciting performances. With February not too far away, the possibility of this matchup is gaining traction, and Whittaker's comments have only added more fuel to the anticipation. Before moving to the next news, we have one quick request for you. We are constantly working on improving our content to earn your love and support. That is why we truly appreciate it if you could take just a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update here on MMA Pulse News. Moving on to another news, Merab is deep in preparation for his highly anticipated fight against Cory Sandhagen at UFC 320 on October 4th. Over the past year, Merab has been receiving plenty of praise for his dominance inside the octagon, and it's clear he's finally getting the respect that has been long overdue. Since 2018, he hasn't lost a single fight, and along the way he's defeated some of the best bantamweights in the world. Earlier this year, Merab became the first man to defeat Umar, a major achievement that turned even more eyes toward him. He also submitted Sean O'Malley in their rematch this past summer, further solidifying his position among the very best. Currently ranked number 3 on the UFC pound-for-pound list, Merab is still as focused as ever. Speaking with MMA Junkie, he explained that the praise and attention haven't changed him. He made it clear that he's never comfortable and never takes anything for granted. To him, every fight matters, whether it's his debut, a contender matchup, or a title fight. He treats each one with the same energy, motivation, and dedication. Merab also pointed out that being on top of the sport comes with its own challenges. As he becomes more popular, the distractions grow. There are more opportunities, more media obligations, and more people pulling him in different directions. Balancing time between family, friends, teammates, coaches, and fans isn't easy, but he's doing his best to manage it all, while staying focused on his ultimate goals. He admitted he feels even more motivated now, even with all these new responsibilities. Some critics have accused him of not being a finisher during his rise, but Merab continues to prove himself inside the cage and is determined to silence more doubters with every performance. Looking ahead, he revealed that he doesn't just want to stop with Cory Sandhagen. If he wins in October, he wants to stay active and return quickly before the year ends to face Petr Yan. He called Yan the most deserving contender in the division and expressed his interest in fighting him as soon as possible. For Merab, the mission is clear: keep winning, stay sharp, and show the world that he belongs among the very best in the sport. Moving on to another news, Khamzat had a strong message for everyone who picked du Plessis to beat him at UFC 319. Late Saturday night, Khamzat went to X and dropped a compilation clip showing all the fighters and analysts who predicted he would lose. Along with that, he added a bold caption making it clear that people should finally understand not to listen to these so-called experts. His tone was fiery, direct, and full of confidence, sending a statement that his performance spoke louder than any prediction ever could. The compilation showed various fighters and personalities breaking down the fight. Many of them believed du Plessis had the advantage, especially in the later rounds. Some said if the fight went into rounds 3, 4, or 5, Khamzat would be in trouble. They felt du Plessis had the conditioning, the toughness, and the pressure style to break him down. A few admitted that they didn't think it would even reach the 5th round, but still leaned toward du Plessis getting the finish late. Their breakdowns painted a picture of a competitive fight where Khamzat would start strong but eventually fade against the relentless pace of du Plessis. One prediction highlighted that du Plessis was one of the best in the division, and because of that, he had to be the favorite. Another voice said they were leaning towards du Plessis after watching his previous performances against top contenders, pointing out how he always seemed to find a way to win regardless of how the fight started. Others even made jokes, pretending to side with Khamzat before quickly switching back to Du Plessis, saying it was going to be an absolute dogfight, but one where Du Plessis' durability and pressure would shine through. There were also comments predicting that Du Plessis would still be the middleweight champion of the world after UFC 319. Some even went as far as to suggest a late stoppage in the 4th or 5th round, envisioning Khamzat slowing down and Du Plessis capitalizing on the moment. The overall vibe from the majority of the predictions was that Du Plessis had too much momentum and too much grit to lose. They expected him to weather the early storm and then dominate once the fight settled into the later rounds. But Khamzat flipped the script. By sharing this compilation with his caption, he reminded everyone that their doubts meant nothing. He proved that all the predictions, the breakdowns, and the assumptions couldn't stop him from doing what he set out to do. His post wasn't just aimed at the fighters who picked against him, but at the entire narrative that doubted his ability to hang with and beat the very best. In the end, Khamzat's message was loud and clear. He showed that despite the majority counting him out, he rose to the occasion and silenced the critics. His performance at UFC 319 was his answer, and the clip he shared was his way of making sure nobody forgets how wrong they were. Moving on to another news, Chael Sonnen has stirred up major controversy in the MMA community after suggesting that reigning UFC lightweight champion Ilia should be removed from the pound-for-pound rankings. In a recent video, Sonnen argued that Ilia might be strategically avoiding tough matchups with top contenders such as Arman, Paddy Pimblett, and Justin Gaethje. According to him, being number one in the world should come with certain responsibilities, and if a fighter is sitting on top of the rankings while pushing fights back, then the integrity of those rankings comes into question. The debate started after Ilia reportedly stated that he would not be ready to return to the octagon until January or February of next year. That decision immediately sparked conversations among fans and analysts, with many questioning the timing. Arman has already confirmed that he won't be facing Ilia next, which leaves the possibilities open for either a fight with Paddy Pimblett or Justin Gaethje. With the lightweight division heating up and contenders hungry for their shot, the uncertainty around Ilia's return has created frustration. Chimaev didn't hold back in his criticism. He explained that when the rankings list you as number one pound for pound across all divisions, it means you're the best fighter in the sport right now. But if you are publicly saying you won't fight until next year, then the perception becomes that you're unable to defend that position in the present moment. Sonnen pushed the idea that perhaps the UFC should consider adjusting the rankings, or even bringing in an interim championship to keep the division moving forward. He emphasized his disappointment, explaining that he woke up expecting to hear about Ilia versus Arman being finalized, only to find out that Ilia was out. He then broke down the logic, saying that whether it's Arman, Paddy, or Justin, the champion should be able to defend against whoever is in front of him. By declaring he won't be ready until next year, Ilia has indirectly admitted, in Sonnen's words, that he can't beat those guys in November or December. Chimaev argued that this is how fans and analysts are going to interpret it, regardless of what the real reason may be. The comments didn't just spark debate about Ilia's position, but also reignited the long-running conversation about the value of pound-for-pound rankings. Sonnen explained that the rankings are supposed to reflect who is truly the best, not just in terms of skill but also activity and willingness to fight. If Ilia sits out while others continue to compete, then it sends the wrong message to both fans and fighters in the division. As UFC 320 approaches and the lightweight picture remains uncertain, Sonnen's words have added even more fire to the conversation. Whether or not the UFC acts on his suggestion, the idea of Ilia being removed from the pound-for-pound list has created a storm online. Fans are now waiting to see how the promotion handles the situation and who ultimately steps in as Ilia's next challenger when he finally returns. For now, Sonnen has made it clear that he believes the number one spot should not be held by someone who isn't ready to fight. Moving on to another news, Alexandre Pantoja has recently shared his own personal UFC pound-for-pound rankings, and the way he explained it really shows how much he respects the top fighters in the game. Pantoja started by saying that pound-for-pound is always a tough conversation, but in his mind, there are a few names that really stand out above the rest. He talked about how some champions are just on another level, and their skills, accomplishments, and consistency make them special. He pointed out that for him, the number one spot is clear, and then number two follows closely. He mentioned how much he respects fighters who have been able to dominate multiple divisions and take on challenges that many others would not even consider. Pantoja showed a lot of admiration for the idea of a double champ, saying it's one of the most impressive achievements in the sport. To him, being able to hold two belts at the same time and defend them is not only rare but also shows a true mastery of MMA. When breaking down his list, he praised fighters who have beaten the very best, highlighting names like Volkanovski, Max Holloway, and Charles. He said those victories mean a lot because those are legends who have proven themselves time and time again. Pantoja called them savage, showing his respect for their skills and toughness inside the octagon. He also spoke with real excitement, saying how much he loves seeing these fighters perform at the highest level. For him, it's not only about records, but about style, heart, and the ability to deliver when the pressure is highest. Pantoja made it clear that his rankings are based on respect and admiration for greatness, not just statistics, and the way he described it really showed his passion for the sport. Moving on to another news, Pereira has sent a clear and powerful warning to Magomed Ankalaev ahead of their highly anticipated rematch at UFC 320. Pereira made it known that he's been carefully rewatching their first fight, studying every moment and focusing on the mistakes he made. He explained that this time around, he's been correcting those errors during his camp, making sure nothing slips through the cracks. He also reminded fans not to be fooled by the training clips he shares online, saying what people see is only about 5% of what he's actually working on. That statement alone shows how locked in he is, and how much he's keeping under wraps before fight night. Of course, critics tried to bring back the same old narrative, questioning Pereira's dedication and pointing to his travels and side projects outside the cage. They claimed that he wasn't fully focused, but Pereira shut that talk down immediately. He explained that his last trip happened 7 weeks before the fight, and that it had zero impact on his preparation. According to him, everything was planned in advance. He laid out a full 6-week training camp, ensuring that nothing got in the way of his commitment to UFC 320. He clarified that there were no breaks, no distractions, and no wasted time. Every move was calculated, every step was part of his plan, and nothing was left to chance. Pereira detailed how his preparation was split perfectly between locations. He started in Brazil, focusing heavily on strength and conditioning, making sure his body was operating at peak levels. From there, he returned to camp seamlessly, transitioning into fight-specific training without missing a beat. The structure and discipline he described made it clear that despite what critics said, his focus has never been sharper. With UFC 320 now just around the corner, Pereira has made it clear that he's fully locked in, fueled not only by his training, but also by the lessons he learned from the first fight with Ankalaev. He wants to show the world that what they saw before was only a small piece of what he's capable of delivering. The rematch, in his eyes, is the opportunity to showcase his full arsenal and remind everyone why he's one of the most dangerous fighters in the sport. His message to Ankalaev carried weight, not just because of the words, but because of the conviction behind them. Pereira sounded calm yet determined, confident yet focused, leaving no doubt that he's preparing to step into the octagon with more fire than ever. He's been there before, he knows what adjustments need to be made, and he's ready to execute. For Pereira, this isn't just about defending his place, it's about proving a point and silencing every doubt once and for all. With fight night fast approaching, his warning to Ankalaev is crystal clear. The version of Pereira stepping into the cage at UFC 320 is going to be far more dangerous than anything seen before. Moving on to another news, Anik has shared his thoughts on just how massive the Canelo vs. Crawford fight truly was. According to Anik, this event stands as the single biggest sporting event he has ever been a part of, even placing it above Conor vs. Khabib, which is widely considered one of the most iconic moments in combat sports history. He admitted that while Conor vs. Khabib was unforgettable, the sheer scale and energy of Canelo vs. Crawford made it feel different, bigger, and almost unmatched in atmosphere. Anik explained that when you have 70,000 fans in attendance, the energy becomes almost impossible to compare to anything else. He said it felt like one of those once-in-a-lifetime moments, and the legacy on the line for both Canelo and Crawford made the stakes even higher. The fight was not just about titles or numbers, but about greatness, legacy, and history. He compared it to some of the biggest stadium shows the UFC has ever done, mentioning Melbourne and Toronto, but pointed out how Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas seemed perfectly designed for combat sports. He described it as intimate yet massive, where fans are close enough to feel the action but still part of a huge spectacle. He wasn't trying to convince Dana White to bring a UFC event there, but he couldn't help but emphasize how perfectly the arena captured the spirit of a historic fight. Anik highlighted how unique it felt to call such a bout, where every punch carried weight and the crowd's roar seemed to shake the entire building. The stakes were insane, the pressure was unmatched, and yet he knew this was the kind of moment any play-by-play commentator dreams of experiencing. He even went back to compare it with a college football game he worked in 2015, which he once considered the most nerve-wracking assignment of his life. At that time, Craig Borsari had told him it would be a one-time opportunity, and Anik admitted he was more nervous for that game than anything else he had ever done, including his own wedding and the birth of his first child. But he made it clear that this Canelo vs. Crawford fight was something beyond nerves, it was special. Anik revealed that his daughter noticed he seemed nervous before the event, but he clarified that it wasn't nerves about being on the call. The preparation may have brought some tension, but once he stepped into his role, he felt comfortable. He recalled advice from Joe Rogan, who told him not to overthink it and to remember it's just two fighters going at it, even though in truth it meant so much more. For Anik, it was about staying in his lane, sticking to his strengths, and letting the fight speak for itself. He closed by reflecting on the entire experience, acknowledging the scale, the crowd, the fighters, and the history being made. To him, Canelo vs. Crawford wasn't just a fight, it was an unforgettable moment in sports, something that will stay with him forever, and truly the biggest event he's ever been a part of. That's it from MMA Pulse News. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for daily MMA news.